Y'all, this episode almost didn't happen. This past week, perfectionism has really been playing in my face. It's been playing with my emotions like real bad, and it almost stopped me from recording. You see, I'm a professional life coach, and I specialize in helping people work through the challenges and the obstacles that come with the mindset of perfectionism. But one of the reasons I'm so good at this work is because this has literally been my story. This has been my life, and I am not exempt from perfectionism now. I like to call myself a recovering perfectionist. This means that, no, I don't allow myself to be ruled by perfectionism anymore, but I can still fall into some of my old patterns and get a little tripped up. And that's exactly what happened this week. My perfectionism had me obsessing over the best way to commemorate this occasion, my 100th episode milestone. And none of my ideas felt good enough, so nothing happened. But then I decided to just walk the walk and be an example of what it looks like to opt out of perfectionism. And when I took the time to just think about what it took to get here to episode 100, the answer was obvious. This journey has never required perfection. All it took was consistency. So today, let's talk about the power of consistency and how it beats out over perfection any day of the week. Ready? Let's go. Good people, welcome back to the Life Edit Project podcast. As always, I'm your girl, your favorite life coach and podcast host, Coach Elizabeth, and I am super excited and always super grateful to have you here with me. You've already heard me say in the intro, this is episode 100 for me, so it feels like a really big deal, y'all. I actually did a little bit of research because it's not every day that people get to episode 100, but just how many people pump out 100 podcast episodes? Well, it turns out, according to Podmatch, that less than 5% of all podcasts make it to episode 100. So really, I am in an elite category of yappers. You can help me celebrate this milestone by leaving a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or over on Spotify, wherever you like to listen. And if you don't know how to do that, there is a link in the show notes that will take you to my website where you will find step-by-step instructions so that you can do it. Another way that you can help me celebrate is to just share the link to this episode or to the show in general on social, or send the link directly to someone that you know would care about and appreciate this episode. That would be the best gift that you could offer me. And I tell you what, because I'm a giver, if you keep listening through to the end of this episode, I also have a special gift for you. But I don't want to hold you. I don't want to go too long with this episode. So let's talk about why consistency is more powerful than perfection. So I've got just a couple of key points that I want to hit here. If you are taking notes, which I highly recommend, here is where you start writing. So when I thought about all of the ways that consistency has served me better than perfection in my career as a life coach and in this journey of creating this podcast, the first thing that I realized was that perfection is a fantasy, but consistency is very real and it is very attainable. I first had the idea to start this podcast at least a year before I actually created it. But what got in the way was, of course, perfectionism. I got all up in my head about whether or not I could do it, whether or not I should do it, what people might think if I did it. And all of those thoughts stopped me from actually doing what I wanted to do. But when I just made it my goal not to put out a perfect podcast, but to just be consistent, to show up every week and talk to the mic, it actually became very easy to make this show a reality. And the other thing that I have learned in this journey of putting out now 100 episodes is that there is no way to make it all perfect. Like, if perfect is the goal, you just might as well hang up the towel now and give up, because it is not going to happen. There are too many moving parts. There are too many elements to make this happen. And because I was new when I started, there are also just too many things that I did not know about podcasting. And even now, I don't consider myself a professional podcaster. I'm just somebody who keeps showing up. And so there are still lots of things about podcasting that I don't know. But I tell you what? Showing up week after week and being consistent has made it possible for me to improve and possible for me to grow. So I may not be perfect and I may not ever be perfect, but because I keep showing up, I am definitely not where I started. And that, for real, is something to celebrate. And I owe the progress and the improvement that I've made to my consistency, not to my perfectionism. A second thing that came to mind as I was planning this episode is that there are a lot of ways to be consistent and to be consistent successfully, but perfectionism is pass fail. And as I said in the first point, perfectionism is just a fantasy, so it's always going to be fail. You cannot succeed if perfection is your only goal. So over the last almost 2 years, there have been a whole lot of different ways that I have shown up and a lot of different ways that I've approached making this podcast and a whole lot of ways that I have consistently applied myself in order to make the show happen, right? So sometimes that looked like pre-recording episodes in advance and then publishing them and scheduling them. Sometimes it looked like recording these episodes the night before they were going to be published or even the day of. Yes, that has happened along the way. Sometimes it has looked like repurposing former live streams or former episodes or pieces of episodes in order to just make sure that I am still putting out an episode. There were times where I was consistently spending hours and hours just researching ideas and topics and writing out full out scripts for what I was going to say when I showed up to the mic. And then there have been times where I've just taken 10 minutes to draft a loose outline and then just riff on the mic. I remember during season 1, I literally planned out every single podcast episode before I started the season. I knew exactly what season 1 was going to look like. And sometimes that has looked like planning mini series, right? So I've done series of 4 to 6 episodes of connected topics, being super deliberate about what I was teaching you and the journey that I was walking you through. And then sometimes it's just deciding on the spot or responding to a random piece of inspiration to just show up at the mic and yap, right? So when I think about all of the different approaches that I've tried in order to make this podcast happen week after week, I can truly say that I haven't been consistent with everything, but there are a lot of ways that I have been consistent, but imperfect, right? So I have been consistent with publishing weekly episodes. I've also been really consistent with my episode formats and different segments and, my intros and theme music. And I've been really consistent about bringing solo episodes, right? So that you get to hear from me and not just random people that I'm bringing on this show. But I have not been perfect with those types of consistency, right? Because I have allowed myself to evolve and I've allowed my approach to change as I've gotten more experience and as I've gotten new ideas. And ultimately, my 100th episode is very different than the first episode that I put out. And it is both the same and different because of the consistency that I've shown, because of all of the ways that my consistency has allowed me to evolve. The third thing that I've learned along the way to episode 100 is that consistency doesn't have to be perfect in order to be effective. And this is probably the most powerful insight of them all. By showing up and putting out 100 episodes, I have created a body of work that not a lot of other coaches have available. Yes, it's true that there are a crap ton of life coaches out there. And yes, it's true that there are a crap ton of podcasts out there. And yes, there is an intersection of life coaches who have podcasts. But there are not a lot of life coaches that have a body of work that consists of 100 podcast episodes and growing, right? I am part of a small group whose voice has been out there and has been amplified. And as I've been showing up along the way, I have been able to hone my ideas and fine-tune my coaching philosophies. I have created intellectual property simply by showing up here and making sure that I was delivering really helpful content that would just serve my audience. My consistency hasn't just served you all, it has also served me. It has made me better. And at the end of the day, no one can take away what I have created with this podcast. When I think about it, I know that there will be ways that my podcast will continue to impact people in the future that I cannot predict now, that I cannot foresee right now. Even if I never publish another episode, and don't worry, I will be back next week. Even if I never put out another episode, the 100 episodes that currently exist are going to live on the interwebs as long as podcast platforms are around, and people will be able to find their way to my work and get value from them. And that is so amazing. And perfectionism would never have let me achieve that. You know, if I'm being real honest, my goal with this podcast was never to be a perfect podcaster. My goal was to create another platform for my voice as a coach to be heard, and one where I could reach more people who could solve their problems if they just had the right tools. And perfectionism would have gotten in my way if I let it. And so maybe that's really the key takeaway for you today. Consistency will take you places that perfectionism never will. Consistency has made me confident, whereas perfectionism has only ever made me insecure and neurotic and unreliable and ashamed. Even in those moments where I was overachieving and when I was trying to be the absolute best, it still wasn't great because perfection is not sustainable. So if by some stroke of luck I managed to do something perfectly, it didn't actually count unless the next time I did it, it was also perfect then. Because that's the thing about perfection. It has to be perfectly maintained. And that is also the trap of perfectionism, because maintaining perfection is literally impossible. And so I've been able to show up here, not just as a coach, but as a human who is imperfect, but still valuable and someone who can be helpful. And an example of, what you can do when you just opt out of perfectionism and allow yourself to be who you are and to be great right where you are. And today I'm clearer about who I am and what I'm capable of and how I can help people because I have shown up consistently here. I've learned that consistency requires discipline, yes, and it requires grit and tenacity, but it also requires creativity and flexibility. And those traits, those skills, that will cultivate excellence in you way more effectively and way faster than your garden variety of perfectionism. And so today, I promised I had something for you if you just stayed listening through the end. Today, I'm inviting you to work with me one-on-one as your personal life coach. When you sign up for my one-on-one coaching program, we'll meet online every week for coaching sessions for a predetermined period of time. Generally, that's between 3 and 6 months. And if you've been struggling with perfectionism in your relationships, in your career, in your thoughts about yourself, in your health journey, wherever, anywhere in your life, weekly coaching with me will be a game changer. Because here's what I know. Clients who work with me consistently every week for months at a time, they get mind-blowing and life-changing results. The act of having a consistent and dedicated block of time on your schedule where you get to just focus your mind and all of your thoughts and energy on getting what you want out of life and getting what you want out of your relationships with the support of someone that's committed to your success and with the support of someone who has tools to help you bring your goals to life, that is powerful stuff. So I'm going to do something that I've never done, and I'm going to offer you a discount on this show. But you're only going to hear about this here on this one episode of this podcast. I'm not going to talk about it anywhere else on social media. I'm not going to promote it to my email list. It's only being offered to you, my podcast listeners. If you sign up for a 3-month package of one-on-one coaching with me, I will give you $100 off in celebration of my 100th episode. That's right, $100 off. So to get this discount, all you have to do is mention this episode of the podcast during our initial sales call. The one where you tell me what's going on and I tell you how I can help you and we talk about what it looks like to work together. I will honor this discount for 100 days from the date that this podcast gets published. So that'll take us through July 25th, 2025. If you are interested in booking that sales call with me, go to the show notes and tap the link to get on my calendar. And as long as you schedule that call to happen by July 25th and you mention this podcast episode, you will have the discount. Because that is how much I believe in the power of consistency in your life. All right, y'all. That is all for this week. I will be back in your ears next week with another juicy episode. In the meantime, go be great. And if you can't be great, then just be consistent. All right? Peace.